Welcome to a Parallel Project Training, APM Project Management Qualification podcast based on the APM Body of Knowledge 7th edition. You should be using this in conjunction with our e-learning, podcasts, and potentially a tutor-led course. For more information, please visit www.parallelprojecttraining.com.
Welcome to another Parallel Project Training podcast. It's Paul Neighbour and
John Bolton.
Hello.
Hello.
Here we are. We're looking at scope management. So in this section, we're going to look at defining the terms output, outcome, benefits, including cost of products and cost breakdown structures, cost, product and work breakdown structures. I'm going to explain the way you can use an organisational breakdown structure to create a role assignment or RACI matrix.
Yep.
So what is project scope?
You told me what the scope of the project is. You said to me, it's everything you're going to do.
Yes.
And everything you're going to make.
And the work required to...
Yeah, everything you're going to do.
Yes.
So it's all the work you're going to do and all the things you're going to make. It's a composite of both of those things. And so the general principle is you don't do any work unless you're going to get something at the end of it.
Yes.
And you can't get something unless you do some work.
Yes.
So the two things are intertwined. They're not separate concepts. So I do some design work and I end up with a design. Mm-hmm. I employ a builder to build a wall, I end up with a wall. So the principle is that every piece of work has a product to show for it, which gives you a bit of a problem if it was something like knowledge transfer. You know, sort of, I'll come into a Vulcan mind melt on you or something. But how do I, what's the product? What's the product of that, you know?
Yes.
So it can be quite difficult to define. So you can find yourself synthesizing products simply to obey the rules, but that's a small price to pay, I think, because unless you have a product to show, you can't ever measure how far through you are because you don't know what the end looks like, which is a bit of a problem for research projects, because they kind of say, well, if I knew what the end looked like, I wouldn't need to do the project. So if I've got a research document, a report, at least I know I'm going to have a report at the end of it. So you can go some of the way to describe what that looks like. But scope of a project, for a building project, would be, you know, I'm going to build a building, therefore I need a product breakdown structure for the building, and I need a work breakdown structure for the work that goes into building the building. And that's all there is to it, I think.
Yes. I think it's an easy concept to get your head round, but it's the most difficult one to define, is what's the scope of the project? What are we actually doing? Which links back to the iterative life cycle, really, because the nice thing about the iterative life cycle is you progressively develop the scope. Yeah. Whereas with a linear life cycle, you've got to sit down at the beginning and try and envisage all the products that you're going to produce when you haven't even done the sort of early stages of the project, which I think is quite a big challenge.
Well, I think the point is your scope evolves, doesn't it? When you start with a project business case, you've got a problem. I want to get people across a river. There's loads of ways I can do that: bridge, tunnel, boat, helicopter, whatever it is. But by the time I finish the business case, I've got to a point where I've decided to build a bridge. At that point, all I know is I need a bridge that got these sorts of characteristics. So it can carry this number of people and it's roughly in that place. I don't know the detail of it. I don't know what colour we're going to paint it or anything like that. But as you go through the planning stages, so you further redefine that scope, and you get to a lower level of granularity. So that's as your work breakdown structures and your product breakdown structures go to lower and lower levels. So as you slowly explore what that product looks like, so your work breakdown structure gets bigger.
So and that's this concept of progressive elaboration of the scope. So it starts quite high level.
That's a PMP term, that is.
More and more detailed as we go through it.
Progressive elaboration. What a lovely word.
Yeah. And I think I was running a course for a client earlier in the week, and there was a guy who'd come out with an operational role, operational planning into project management. Yeah. And he was saying he was struggling with the ambiguity of what he had been asked to do. Because he didn't know it all. And I said, well, that's normal. It's normal at the beginning of a project not to know everything about everything that you're going to have to do. Yeah. Because you have to go through that development to fully develop what the scope is. And it's quite interesting. He did a scoping exercise. I said, right, identify all the things you have to deliver. And he mapped out all of these different requirements in the different sections. And I said, that's quite interesting. It's a really good requirements tree, but it's not the products. And he goes, oh, yeah. He's like light bulb moment.
Yeah.
So I think it's not an easy thing for some people who especially come out of an operational.
I think the other thing to remember is there's two types of product. There's the technical product. So there's the thing that you're actually making, like the building. And there's also what they call the managerial products, which are things like the project management plan and possibly some of the procedures that you're going to follow and possibly some of the standards you're going to adopt.
Yes, you could touch,
so it's just as good.
You could say the design documents are a management product to some extent because you don't actually deliver them at the end of the project.
Oh, you do?
They're an intermediate thing to get you to the end.
I don't know. You deliver the as-built drawings, don't you?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, but they're not.
Deliver the configuration library.
Yes.
We're going to get into debate, aren't we, about what goes in a configuration, what configuration control means.
Let's stick to the basics, shall we? So we've got these three things, outputs, outcomes and benefits. So we better define what those are in terms, because we've talked about products so far and how that's different. So there is a confusion in language people use, partly because these are outcome-based models rather than delivery models. So for me, an output is a sum of all the products that makes a functional component. That's quite a posh word. But
the output?
Yes. So the outputs of a project are usually some amalgamation of all the products that are functional. So in a hospital, for instance, an operating theatre might be an output. An A&E department might be an output. But that output is made up of lots and lots of products.
I always tell people, I mean, if you look in the glossary, a collection of products is called deliverables.
Okay.
Outputs.
I can't see deliverables here.
No, because it's all the same word, really. Outputs, deliverables, and products, in terms of defining this, are more or less the same. An operating theatre is just a high level.
So you see it.
A hospital is a high level of a product breakdown structure. Yes. An operating theatre is the next level down.
So you don't see
the next level down is
between a product and an output?
No. Personally, I don't.
Okay.
I mean, there might be some sort of philosophical discussion we could enter into, but I'm not sure it's going to be very helpful for people that are studying the qualification.
Okay.
And is it actually necessary to be differentiate? In the glossary, it says a deliverable is a collection of outputs. Sorry, products, beg your pardon. Deliverable is a collection of products. It doesn't mention output.
Okay.
The only reason we talk about outputs is because this model comes out of MSP.
Yes, well, that's right. So.
And outputs in there, they use the word output and product interchangeably. So we've got a project produces an output, which can be at any level you like. It can be a hospital, or it can be an operating theatre, or it could be a surgical table, or it could be a scalpel, right? So it doesn't really matter. It's just a level of granularity.
Yeah, so if you look at the MSP, but the other outcome-based models, they talk about the output for the project.
Yes, that's right.
And they see that as the sum of all the products together.
Yeah.
And that output enables you to achieve an outcome.
That's
so
right.
in a hospital, the output is the
hospital, the physical
and
building.
The outcome is that you have better health.
That's right. Well, the outcome is you have a shorter waiting time.
Yeah. So we're going to disagree about this, but for me, the output is the sort of combination of all the products working together. The outcome is the consequence of change. That's
so
right.
The fact that you can do something you couldn't do before.
Correct.
If you build a bridge, the bridge isn't an outcome, nor is it a benefit. It's just a fabricated product. So the bridge is a product. The outcome is that people can get across the river.
Correct.
If you don't want to get across the river, there's no benefit.
And the benefit is what you achieve.
Well, the benefit is the measurable value that you place on being able to get across the river. So if you can get to work 10 minutes earlier, you could place a value on that.
Yes.
Your employer might place a value on that. The society might place a value on it. So the whole idea of benefit is really structured around the people who observe it.
Yes.
Because if you build a hospital in Surrey, if you live in Glasgow, it's probably of no benefit whatsoever. And this is where you get your government green books and all that sort of stuff, because they have to try and weigh up the relative benefit of one product from another where they're very dissimilar. So if I've got what's the relative merits of a new hospital versus a nuclear submarine?
Yes, that's right. They're all coming from the same funding.
That's right, because there's only one lot of money eventually.
Yeah.
So this model is not perfect, I don't think, and we can get into a discussion about outputs, benefits, and outputs, products,
I think,
and deliverables.
okay, I've done a bit more work on this, actually. This is coming from a different perspective from project management. This is coming from how to achieve organisational change or societal change. So that's why the language is different. It's a different mindset, really. So that's why they talk about outcome, output, and benefits.
Yeah, it is reflected in BoK7, though.
Yes. But it's. I think what's going on here is you've got the project management body of knowledge traditionally,
yes,
which is
right.
talked about products and work breakdown structures, and then you've got the people saying, but what about the change and the benefits?
That's
and
right.
the two come together in two models.
They
they're
do.
not quite lined up at this output, but it's a useful concept because the sponsor is going to be talking the language of outputs, outcomes, and benefits. And the project manager is going to be talking the language of work breakdown structures and products.
That's right.
And deliverables. And so we do need to understand that these two things overlap.
Well, the other point about this model, the reason this is quite useful, and I think you're right. I think that where you get more than one sort of philosophy,
Yes.
that when they kind of clash together, it's like tectonic plates,
Yes,
and there's
you
a
get
bit of
two sets
volcanic
of-
activity in the middle. So it's like iterative and linear life cycles. When they start rubbing
Yes.
up against each other, you kind of spot a load of differences, and that's what's happening here.
Yes.
But the key thing for me here is that when you start running a project, you don't decide you want to build a bridge.
You decide what benefit you want to
And then
achieve.
you find all the reasons why a bridge is a good idea. You decide that you want to get across the river. You analyse all the potential costs and benefits of all the possible solutions, and then you arrive at the best one, which might be a bridge.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree
So
with that.
you don't start, and what that does, it stops pet projects.
Yes, that's right. That's
So
right.
it stops
you start with-
politicians or influential people having a pet project and then chucking loads of money at it in the hope that it yields some benefit.
Yeah, so it's the same philosophy again that we met in that iterative and agile world, is that start with the outcome and start with the benefits and
That's
then
right.
work out what solutions are going to meet that.
Yeah, it is terribly difficult to do though, because you haven't got to do it many times before you realise you're always going to build a bridge.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, a number of startup businesses that I know who haven't talked to their end users.
Yes, that's right.
Like a couple
Someone's got a really good
A couple
idea.
of the people I know are working in tech startups, and they have not spoke to the end user. They've got, we're going to build this. It's going to be fantastic. Loads of people are going to buy it, and then the users go, it's a bit sort of like, I wouldn't buy that.
Well, I mean, if you watch the Dragon's Den, that's when that happens. That's when that
and you say, well,
realization dawns.
And they
isn't
say,
it?
why didn't you talk to the end user? Oh, well, it was they'd have stolen our ideas.
They might have told me. They might have told me it was rubbish.
I knew. Yeah, they might have told me it was rubbish. Well, I knew what they wanted, and then they realised that actually they didn't. So let's move on then. So the project, we need to find some way of defining the scope in this progressive elaboration in more and more detail. And there's a couple of ways of doing that. You can start by. It depends what industry. In some industries, they know what they're going to do. So if you're building a house, for instance, you know the order of the work. You know what the scope is. You know it's foundation. Well, it's groundwork, foundations, walls, roof. First
I'll
fix, second
tell you a
fix,
funny
bang,
story
bang,
about
bish,
that.
bash,
I was
bosh.
talking to a bunch of people who build these these industrial units.
Oh yeah,
like the Amazon sheds.
yes,
And I said exactly that. I said, well, there's a certain logic. So I was talking about precedence diagramming, and I said, well, you build the foundations, build the walls, put the roof on. And they looked at me like I was mad, and I said, well, sort of, what, why? And they said, well, no, that's not what we do. So what we do is we build the foundations, then we put a steel frame on,
Yes.
then we put the roof on, then we
Yes.
build the walls.
Yes.
That way you're working in the dry.
yes.
So kind of what's logical to me
Might be different
is
for them.
totally different, because they do it all the time. And it sort of, they're right, there is a certain assumption.
But
that,
they always do it that way, so they don't need. That's always the way you do it.
Well, yeah, sort of.
That's just the way you do it.
Yeah, it is. I mean, in that environment.
Yeah.
But if you're building a building, if you're building a dwelling, you normally do it exactly how you said.
Yes.
So you can't assume that just because you kind of got a certain logical progression of things in your mind, that's the way it's got to happen. You've got to rely on people that know how to do it.
Yes, that's right.
Past
So
history.
certain industries will have a standard.
That's right. But that's why these work breakdown structures, you have to remember that they're not sequential. You don't start at the left and finish on the right.
Good point.
Okay, so this is simply a decomposition of the work that's involved.
In delivering the project.
And it's completely free format. You could have the start of the project could be work package number 200, and there's no, and I think when you come to the precedence diagram, that's when it all gets sorted out. But for the purposes of these, they are just simply a decomposition
of the work
into
work packages.
And
the purpose of doing that is to basically establish controls. So that becomes a budget that you can give to somebody. You've got this amount of work to do. Go away and do it. And that person you're giving the work to can be a contractor, or it can be an internal resource. So it's a mechanism to delegate the work. Really.
It's almost like a mini project.
Yes, that's right. It's breaking the project into the...
So the work packages have certain characteristics. It's because you've got a bit of scope associated with it, a time scale, a bit of a budget, some risks and all the rest of it. So they're a bit like a little mini project. But the important thing, at the end of that work package, you would have delivered a product, a key product or deliverable.
Yeah.
And so some people just like the idea of work packages because work is a little bit more easy to conceptualize.
Yes, than products.
So I'm going to build a house. So people talk about verbs in work packages.
Yes.
I'm going to do a design. I'm going to build a house. I'm going to write some software.
I suppose we better make
the product breakdown structure.
A lot of industries don't do work breakdown structures.
They do.
But they do it because they have a way of working, so they don't need to work out what the work breakdown structure is. They have like you described with your steel frame buildings, they have a way of doing it. So there's like an industry work breakdown structure.
That's right. And they refine it over time. You see quite a lot of these companies, construction firms like that, they take the plan from the last one and more or less the same for the new one. You can argue whether that's a project or not, or business as usual. But
so if you've got a unique project, then a work breakdown structure is a really good thing to think through how you're going to break down.
If you're going to go to fly to Mars,
you got to think about what
you'll be importing bits of it. Like this is how we test an engine.
Yes.
This is how we test a capsule or whatever it is. But the actual build of that capsule might be very different.
Yes.
So you can have bits of pieces of one work package and another. And I think
product breakdown structure is all the stuff we're going to deliver, all the components, all the.
Now, this is slightly contentious, and I'm not sure you agree with me here, but if you take the presumption that every bit of work has got a product,
yes,
and every product requires a bit of work, then a product breakdown structure is exactly the same as a work breakdown structure. Except it describes the product, not the work.
Yes, the order can be different.
Yes. Yeah.
So sequencing. So you might.
No, we're not talking about sequencing. We're talking about decomposition. If I do a design, I'll end up with a design. If I build a house, I'll end up with a house.
Yes, at the bottom level, the product will match the work packages.
That's right.
But you might. You might decide to break your products down by functional area. So you might have foundations, you might have mechanical, electrical.
Yeah, but you can do that with the work breakdown structure as well.
Yeah, but you could just mirror that in the work breakdown structure. But what quite often people do with the work breakdown structure is they'll do design phase, procurement phase, construction phase, commissioning phase. So they don't have to be. At the bottom level, it's the same stuff.
Yes,
but the way you shuffle the deck.
Yeah.
You could shuffle like a pack of cards. You could shuffle it, by order.
No, I get that. But if you could theoretically draw one of those diagrams, because you see, for a work breakdown structure, to define, if you take the assumption that it's got to have a product, a work package needs a product description.
Yes.
But a product breakdown structure, a product description needs a statement of work.
Yes.
So they're both the same thing.
Yes, they are at the bottom level.
I completely understand you might want to order it differently for whatever's expedient.
Yes, that's right. You might decide to
do
WBS in phases. Yeah. That's quite common.
If you don't have a product for every bit of work, you'll never be able to do earn value.
Yes, that's right. But a lot of people will use the life cycle as a key to the phases in the work breakdown structure.
Yeah. So that's it. Work, product, and then
Organisation. So organisation is all the people who are going to work on the project. So it's contractors or employees and how those people relate to each other. So the reporting criteria for each of those people or organisations.
That's it.
And then we can map those two together. So basically the RACI chart, or role assignment matrix, says so who's doing what work package, who's responsible for the delivery of which work package.
That's right.
Who's going to check that that work package has been done properly? Who's going to hold them to account? Who do they have to consult? And who do they have to tell when they've finished it?
That's right.
And then the final structure is we want to price up all those work packages. So what are the components of cost that we use to build up that cost base? So you look at all the labour, materials and overheads that you use to price up each part of that work breakdown structure.
That's right. That's right. As people get confused about what R and A mean, R is the person that's going to do it.
Yes.
And A is the person that's accountable for the person doing it. So the idea is you can't really delegate accountability, but you can delegate responsibility. Mm-hmm. So, if something goes wrong, you might give the project manager...
You're still accountable for it.
You might give the project manager a good kick in, but you're in turn are going to get kick in as well. Yeah. So
yeah.
I always think of it as being accountable for the decisions you make. So if I make you responsible for something and you mess it up, the chances are I've got a big role to play in that, and I'm accountable for what you're doing. Mm-hmm. So you're responsible for doing it. But
Ultimately accountable.
Yeah, but accountability goes up the tree.
Yes, responsibility flows down.
And flows down, exactly,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the last one is cost breakdown structure, isn't it?
Oh, we did that.
What, just then?
Yes.
I wasn't listening.
While you were writing notes in your
I was
pad.
writing some notes on my pad, and I missed that bit. What did you say about it then?
We said it's...
Go on, say it again.
We said it's just a breakdown of the different cost headings that you use to price up each work package.
Okay, because it's like the third dimension, isn't it? Work, product, cost.
Yes,
if you look in BS 6079, it's a cube, isn't it?
You can slice the project in different ways.
That's right, because the accountants always want to go, how much have you spent on contractor X, or how much have you spent on insurance, or what's your TNS, or... Yeah. Right.
So let's just summarise then. So we have got this projects produce outputs. An output is the thing that you deliver. That output enables you to achieve an outcome, so do something that you couldn't do before, which will give different benefits to different stakeholders. Then you can break your project into all the work that's required to do it, or all the products that are required to deliver the project. And you can identify the people who are responsible. You can then figure out who's going to do what work package, and then you can use the cost breakdown structure to work out how much each work package is going to cost. And that's scope management.
All good.
Excellent. Thank you, John.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast and found it informative. To find out about our training courses, e-learning, or tutor-led course, please go to www.parallelprojecttraining.com.